Today we're going to talk about one of the more interesting figures in pre-modern mathematics, the Renaissance thinker Girolamo Cardano. Cardano was one of the few figures in mathematics before the Enlightenment that we have significant information about from multiple sources. However, frequently Cardano has been portrayed as the villain in the story of 16th century mathematics, the solution of the cubic equation and the controversy that it engendered. Not that that story really has any heroes. In brief, the cubic controversy revolves around four mathematicians living in an age where publishing discoveries was not the norm. Instead, knowledge was a precious resource that was hoarded and could be used to gain renown. This was the case for the first three mathematicians of our story. Scipione del Ferro discovered a method for solving a specific form of the cubic equation, one that lacked a quadratic term. But del Ferro never publicized his results, only sharing it with his pupil Antonio Fiore. Fiore similarly kept the secret and used it in his scholarly challenge with Niccolò Tartaglia. Tartaglia also believed he had solved a form of the cubic and had boasted of his presumed success, a boast Fiore was eager to deny. However, Tartaglia was able to independently discover del Ferro's method, which, along with his own discoveries, won the day. This is where Cardano enters our story. Learning of his success, Cardano begged Tartaglia for his secret, promising not to publish the result. After much persuasion, Tartaglia revealed the secret and the seeds of the cubic controversy were laid. Despite the promise, Cardano turns around and publishes the secret in his opus Ars Magna with only a brief mention of Tartaglia. It's a fun story, but is Cardano the simple villain that story portrays? I started thinking otherwise after a brief mention of Cardano in the History of England podcast. In that podcast, Cardano is quoted as a source on the soon-to-be-dead boy king Edward VI. David Crowther stated, Cardano, an Italian physician, met Edward at this time. This boy, declared Cardano, was filled with the highest expectation on account of his cleverness and sweetness of manner. There's no mention of the usual slights that always accompany Cardano's name. This was a doctor that was allowed access to the King of England, and Edward was not the only patient of high rank Cardano visited. Throughout Europe, Cardano was a highly sought-after physician. After his cure, the Archbishop of St. Andrews, Cardano was offered a lucrative post in that kingdom, one of many he turned down. At a time when conflicts between Christians and Muslims, and Catholics and Protestants were heightened, Cardano frequently corresponded and collaborated with members of both religions discussing new medical practices. Cardano is one of the founders of probability theory, centuries before it was formalized by Pascal and Fermat. Like those figures, his investigation grew out of questions about gambling. Was there a reason certain strategies were better than others? Were there laws governing chance? Although his work does not have the rigor of Pascal and Fermat, it laid the groundwork for their discoveries. And what about the cubic controversy? Is he really a one-dimensional villain stealing Tartaglia's work? Hardly. What Tartaglia appears to have is a procedure to solve certain types of cubic equations, one without a formal proof. Cardano took this thread and developed it into a coherent theory. Not only did he develop it into a general method for solving all cubics, but he provided a rigorous proof of the method, involving 16 different geometrical proofs. These multiple forms were required as Cardano did not allow for negative coefficients. As part of the study of the cubic equation, Cardano was the first mathematician to use imaginary numbers, although reluctantly. Complex numbers are at the heart of modern physics, and it starts right here with Cardano. And as for stealing Tartaglia's thunder and prestige by publishing, Cardano gives Tartaglia 8 years to publish, and only received vague assurances it was coming. During that time, Cardano heard rumors of del Ferro's secret. After investigating and confirming that Tartaglia was not the sole discoverer of the secret, Cardano felt secure in publishing. Was it wrong? Ask yourself this question. If Cardano had not published his discovery, what would Tartaglia have done? Most likely the same thing del Ferro did, and pass it on in secret. Cardano's publishing gave the entire mathematical community the major mathematical discovery of the Renaissance. In particular, it showed there was more to discover in mathematics than what the Greeks knew. But despite everything Cardano achieved, his life was a tragedy. An unhappy marriage, one son executed for murder, another embezzling his fortune, the church bringing heresy charges against him for astrology. But his mathematical credentials are solid and need to be kept separate from his personal faults. At his core, he is a product of the Renaissance, and we should always situate him in that era when discussing his life. We should also remember that, unlike the purity of a mathematical proof, history is messy and biased. We should always consider our sources carefully and watch for sources of bias. Ultimately, Cardano is a figure at the crossroads. He's a mix of classical beliefs soon to be discarded and cutting-edge theory. Many of the great leaps of the Enlightenment-era mathematicians are built on his foundations, and this should always be at the forefront of any discussion of Cardano.